Welcome inside Ohio Stadium, where Ohio State continued its run of dominance tonight, earning a 48-10 win over UCLA in a night game here at the Shoe. A night that had some concerns for Ohio State. Carnell Tate not playing in this game. Jeremiah Smith leaving the game early. Ryan Day saying after the game that they were just holding out those guys. Doesn't sound like either injury is serious. We'll see if they come back next week against Rutgers. Obviously, the more important thing is having them back in 2 weeks and beyond against Michigan. But even without Jeremiah Smith, even without Carnell, they had a little bit of Jeremiah Smith, but without Jeremiah Smith after the third drive, without Carnell Tate at all, still a dominant performance by the Buckeyes in this one. They scored on every one of their drives in the first half. They held UCLA from scoring on their first 7 drives. We saw a hurdle from James Peoples that I don't know if anybody saw coming, but it was absolutely spectacular. And for the first time in 15 years, Andy, I was a senior in high school the last time Ohio State scored a kickoff return touchdown. The drought finally ended tonight. Lorenzo Styles Jr. taking 100 yards to the house for the first kickoff return touchdown since Jordan Hall versus Michigan in 2010.
Believe I was in 7th grade when that happened, so been a long time since we got that bit of history. And honestly, for a guy that Lorenzo Styles Jr., we've said it all season, I think people, for a while, the Ohio play with Chase Hendricks kind of stuck in their memories. Lorenzo has been really good at nickel this year, and to see him make an impact like that on special teams, he also had a big punt return earlier in the season on the trick play that they ran, that throwback from Ennis to him. But to see him do that, and like Brandon Ennis after the game called him the fastest player on the team. It might be true, man. He separated from that UCLA kick coverage team in an instant. Only man he really had to make mince after he kind of looped around there was the kicker, who he put on skates with a juke move, and it was off to the races. I mean, wonderful moment for Lorenzo Styles Jr. and a wonderful moment for James Peoples with that carry. He got so high up in the air, like you watch the replay, unbelievable how high he got off the ground. I mean, the defender, UCLA's defensive back, it was aiming for his thighs on the tackle. It wasn't like an ankle diver, and James leaped clean over him. Like, I don't think he got touched. Crazy play. So two of the best highlights of Ohio State's season coming from a game they dominate. The passing game was interesting in this one. Julian early was his usual accurate self. I think it was like 15 of 17 he started. Spreading the ball around a lot. No receiver finishes with more than 40 yards in this game for Ohio State. As the game went on, Jeremiah comes out. The chemistry wasn't quite as there with the backup guys I think we saw. Still made some nice plays, and Bryson Rogers in the first half it was a great throw from Julian and a nice play by Bryson to come open late on a 4th and 5 for a touchdown there for Ohio State. Excuse me. But overall, great performance from the passing game. Great to see those strides on special teams and in the run game too.
Yeah, not a performance that's going to win Julian Sayin the Heisman Trophy tonight, but still, I think a good overall performance, all things considered, when Carnell Tate wasn't out there. Jeremiah Smith only played a few series. But, going back to a running game, I think certainly for James Peoples, big for him. I had just written a story earlier this week where, James had told us during media interviews earlier this week that, he was still confident, even though he hadn't had the year that people expected from him, that he was going to make an impact for his team down the stretch. And we certainly saw that. 2 touchdowns tonight, the first 2 touchdowns of the season for him, the first 2 touchdown game of his career, certainly highlighted by that hurdle. I think he showed that he is still someone who can make an impact for this team down the stretch, even though I think it became even more clear tonight that Isaiah West has cemented himself as RB2 behind Bo Jackson. Another really good game for Isaiah West, a great game for Bo Jackson, who was over 100 yards for, I believe, the 4th time this season. So overall, a good night for the running game, albeit against a UCLA defense that has not been good against the run this year. Has actually been one of the worst run defenses in the country. So we'll learn more about this running game in a couple weeks against Michigan than we did tonight. But I think certainly with Jeremiah Smith, with Carnell Tate being out, it was very important for Ohio State to build some momentum in the run game, and this is certainly a performance they can build off.
Yeah, it's one thing you come in to play one of the worst run defenses in the country. You can say it that way. Only Rutgers in the Big Ten allows more yards per carry than UCLA entering tonight, and Rutgers is dead last. UCLA's in the bottom 10 for that statistic. But still, to put it on paper, or to take it from paper and put it on the field, is another thing entirely. In this ground game, I thought the run blocking was there a lot better in this game. Luke Montgomery stood out to me early as far as the guards go. I made a joke on Twitter, Isaiah West, but he's a really good job at getting north and south. Like, I love that downhill running style, the sharp cuts and close spaces. Both he and Bo Jackson have solidified themselves as the top 2 running backs on this team, as much as I liked what I saw from James Peoples today, and I think we'll see C.J. Donaldson continue to be a situational guy when he comes back. Was injured, was questionable today, didn't ultimately play. So, great strides taken in the ground game. Even against a weak defense, you built the momentum you wanted to, but like you said, the real test comes against Michigan in 2 weeks because Rutgers is pretty bad at defending the run also.
Do want to get a shout-out in here for our sponsor, the First Bank of Central Ohio, from game day to workday. First Bank of Central Ohio is in your corner. The official bank of 11 Warriors, sponsoring After Carmen, the official post-game show of 11 Warriors. We talked about the run game being something that's been kind of a weakness this season for Ohio State. Special teams is another area where Ohio State has had a lot of room to improve, and it wasn't just that kickoff return touchdown tonight. We saw a punt block as well from Caden Curry. Granted, a terrible punt by UCLA. I asked Caden Curry, I said, was that the easiest punt block you've ever had in your career? He said, I'd like to say it was the intimidation factor that made him shank that punt. But either way, 2 game-changing plays on special teams. That's not something we've seen a lot of from Ohio State this year. So a good opportunity tonight for Ohio State to build some momentum in that phase of the game, and show that special teams can be an asset for them, because it kind of felt like the first couple months of the season that it was an area that maybe wasn't necessarily hurting them, but it wasn't helping them either. But you think back last week, we see Jaden Fielding have a fantastic game. Then tonight, you see the kickoff return touchdown and the pump block. We're starting to see special teams build some momentum and be something that is actively changing games for Ohio State. And if that can continue to be the case in those big games of the year, that could be huge.
Another 2-for-2 day for Jaden Fielding, too. And yes, I think the special teams has really started to build more consistency. And you like to see them making those impacts here and there where it's going to be important. Special teams is very much a margin thing when you get into these key games against Michigan, potential Big Ten championship, and then the playoffs after that. And look, Ohio State just keeps rolling, man. There's a lot to be said for that. I've said it before. We've said it before. You look around college football, there's a lot of close games out there happening. Some teams falling off the wagon. I know, obviously, Alabama losing to Oklahoma today. I mean, there's something to be said for handling your business every week, even against weaker competition. Texas A&M struggling today.
They're down 30-3. Yes. Ultimately won 31-30, but they were down 30-3. Indiana pulling away in the second half against Wisconsin. But we said it last week. This is the most dominant team in college football. It's now 9 games in a row. They've won by at least 18 points. They're just taking care of business week in and week out. Yeah, people are going to point to the strength of schedule. It is what it is. Mm-hmm. Ohio State has not had a lot of great opponents lately, but they're doing everything they need to do. I think, we could sit here right now and say 10-0 with what they've done. They are in the college football playoff. I don't really think there's anything that could happen that would keep them from getting in the college football playoff at this point. Obviously, the goal is to go 12-0, finish the season with a long-awaited win against Michigan, and then go win a Big Ten championship. But to this point in the year, Ohio State has done everything it's needed to do to put itself in position to make another national championship run.
I'd say so, and especially defense keeps dominating. Man, UCLA didn't cross into Ohio State territory until there were less than 2 minutes in the third quarter, what was ultimately their lone touchdown drive. Smothering in the run game. I mean, that 4th and 2 run up the middle where UCLA gets no yardage, I think is a testament to what Ohio State's really built on this in defensive interior centered around Caden McDonald. The pass defense was on point. Obviously, UCLA had a backup quarterback in there. Tried to attack some of the edges of the defense early in the game. There might have been 1 or 2 chunk plays they got off of that, but it was an immediate adjustment and a stop from Ohio State, flowing sideline to sideline with its linebackers and its defensive backs. Another dominant outing from them, and you never want to get away from, hey, that's the number one thing that makes this team so dominant, makes this team the national title favorite, is how great, how still generationally good it's been on the defensive side of the football.
We won't have a Sunday afternoon 11 Warriors live tomorrow because Ohio State men's basketball plays at 12:30. Andy will be there covering that game. Ohio State women's basketball also plays big game tomorrow afternoon at noon. So no 11W live tomorrow. We will be back at some point this week. Look out for an announcement on that. But lots more coverage of Ohio State's win versus UCLA to come on 11warriors.com. For now, he's Andy Anders. I'm Dan Hope. This has been After Carmen.